Try again. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Soul Food Poetry Night. I'm Michael Dillon Welch. Thank you for making the choice to come here tonight. There's always lots of distractions elsewhere, but you've made the choice to be here, and I think we'll have a wonderful reading to reward you tonight. We have Rose Alley Press authors who are our featured readers tonight, and then we'll have our open mic. If you'd like to sign up for our open mic reading, the sign-up sheet is right here. And our question of the month is, what was the first car you remember riding in? So if you'd like to sign up, please add an answer to that question. And you can sign up at the break if you haven't signed up already. To get us started, I would like to read a poem by William Butler Yeats. This is called Adam's Curse. We sat together at one summer's end, that beautiful, mild woman, your close friend, and you and I, and talked of poetry. I said, a line will take us hours, maybe, yet if it does not seem a moment's thought, our stitching and unstitching has been naught. Better go down upon your marrow bones and scrub a kitchen pavement or break stones like an old pauper in all kinds of weather. For to articulate sweet sounds together is to work harder than all these, and yet be thought an idler by the noisy set of bankers, schoolmasters, and clergymen. The martyrs call the world, and thereupon that beautiful mild woman for whose sake there's many a one shall find out all heartache on finding that her voice is sweet and low, replied, to be born a woman is to know, although they do not talk of it at school, that we must labor to be beautiful. I said, it's certain there is no fine thing since Adam's fall, but needs much laboring. There have been lovers who thought love should be so much compounded of high courtesy that they would sigh and quote with learned looks precedents out of beautiful old books. Yet now it seems idle trade enough. We sat grown quiet at the name of love. We saw the last embers of daylight die, and in the trembling blue-green of the sky, a moon, worn as if it had been a shell, washed by time's waters as they rose and fell about the stars and broke in days and years. I had a thought for no one's but your ears, that you were beautiful and that I strove to love you in the old high way of love, that it had all seemed happy and yet we'd grown as weary-hearted as that hollow moon. That is Yeats. And I read that poem. I love the line about. Let me find the line. Where is it? A line will take us hours, maybe, yet it does not seem a moment's thought. Our stitching and unstitching has been naught. But the idea of compressing a line and make it feel as if it came off easily, that is so hard to do. Another reason I read this poem is it's an example of metered verse and rhyme, which is not always given the most attention in contemporary poetry circles. Tonight, we have a press, Rose Alley Press, founded by David Horowitz in 1995, that favors metrical and rhymed verse. And you'll hear some of that tonight, and you may hear other things too, but something to know is that the press features this kind of metered verse, and I think it's a rare commodity, and I think we're very fortunate to have David Horowitz leading Rose Alley Press for local authors. And if you haven't yet seen them, he has a number of books on display that include anthologies of Pacific Northwest writers, as well as numerous individual books by poets from this area. And we're very pleased to have, he's tireless in supporting his authors. And lots of readings that you put on in various places, and I'm glad you can be here tonight and brought a bunch of the poets you've published tonight. And I'm very glad that they can read tonight, and I'm also glad that you will be introducing them all. So please welcome David Horowitz and Rosalie Press.
And I am delighted to be here. Thank you, Michael. Thank you all for being here. I'm delighted at this lovely crowd, wonderful afternoon. As Michael noted, there's so many other things people could be doing. So when you make the effort to attend and participate in a poetry reading, it's doubly appreciated. Few announcements. We do have books for sale, something Michael alluded to. Feel welcome to browse. Obviously, no pressure to buy anything. If you don't want anything, that's fine. If you do, though, it's a really good time to buy. The authors are here to sign the books, and I am donating $2 for every book sold. There are a few of them that I did not publish, but regardless of whether I published or not, $2 for every book sold from that table to the Millionaire Club charity in downtown Seattle, which helps people who are really down in their luck. It's non-politically and non-religiously affiliated. They're just there to help the homeless, the jobless, the desperate. So it's a good time to buy a book, and I will go home, and the second I get home, I write these checks. I do this all the time. So please bear that in mind. Support is always appreciated. And no better way to say thank you to a poet than to buy a book that he or she has written. So thank you very much. A few other things. One poet who was supposed to be here, Douglas Shooter, had a family emergency and could not attend or participate. So I'll read one poem by Douglas before we start. And two other people, when we talk about it, Rosalie Press, near and dear to my heart because I founded it. I've been operating it for 22 years. You've heard of Simon & Schuster. I call myself Simon & Shoestring. It's that kind of a situation. I had a day job until I just retired last week to keep it going. My mother, bless her heart, Ruth Horowitz, who taught at the University of Washington for many years, passed away a little under 2 years ago, August 2015. I'm going to read a short poem in her honor. And then my favorite teacher, William Dunlop, University of Washington instructor, who passed away 12 years ago. I'm going to read one poem by him to honor their contributions to not only Rosalie Press, but my personal development. And we do owe back those who help us. And without those two people, I would have been a far less of a person. So I'm going to begin by reading a poem by William Dunlop. William was a teacher of English at the University of Washington and a magnificent poet, very gifted man, British, and nonetheless for that, a very, very wise and aesthetically informed man. This is a poem about cats having 9 lives. It's simply called Old Tom, as in Tomcat. And Mike, if I just go like this will lower this a bit. All right, good. Old Tom by William Dunlop. First, just a kit, a boot squelched him, voided his screeching innards. Then a charged flex had him reeling, salted his whiskers with a fizzy icing. Once he was drowned, though he scrabbled his ratty scrawn out of the rainbutt, polished it off, licking the rest of his lives into shape. Once he was stoned by dead-end kids ganged for a killing. He laid down his ears and scarpered like a wink of spit off a shovel and counted his breaks on the rooftop. Next, he took poison, neat from the garbage's delicatessen. By jerks, he coughed up a lifetime of hairballs and rot-gut gobbets. Once a tussle of yip-snapper mongrels had him worried to death. Once he was hanged if the clinching crook of a tree couldn't bear him to cling to his freezing. And once in a yowling rut up the alley, sharp slashers nailed him, scraped on his throat strings, clipped off an ear by their scoring. Now he considers chances, thinning his long-shot eyes, switching a nibble of tail at the odds. He reckons his claws in and purrs. 8 down. The hell of a tough one to go. William Dunlop was a magnificent poet, and I was lucky to be a student. You can give him all the credit in the world. Now, Randy Shooter, Douglas Shooter, a good friend of mine for many, many years, for over 2 decades. I'm going to read one poem by Douglas from the second anthology that I published, Many Trails to the Summit. And I don't know if anybody's seen a guy named Michael Dillon Welch. I think he also has a set of 13 haiku in this book. So some of the local writers to whom he refers, he knows them pretty well. But Randolph wrote this lovely poem. It's a poem that fits springtime, and I'm going to read it. And it's about the mayfly, which I think has a kind of a one-day life cycle or something like that. So it's simply called Mayfly, and a nice little poem. Mayfly by Randolph Douglas Shooter. Brought forth in warmth and light for one balmy day, ephemeral and slight, jewel of the May. Before the curtain falls, your looping mating rite on gauzy wings enthralls the vaulting trout, angler's delight. How brief the part you play, your moments are as years, and at the close of day the player disappears. Begot of substance rare in a womb of streams, what mortal thing compares with you this side of dreams? Lovely spring poem by Douglas Shooter. And last, I'm going to honor my dear departed mother, Ruth, who she's one of the few people who really all along said, you be what you want to be. You don't worry about whether or not people regard you as a success. If you want to be a poet, you get out there and be a poet. And let me tell you, as a man, when you get in your 30s and 40s, that can be awfully rare to find people who are that much in your corner. A lot of stereotypes and expectations. So I bless her every day. First stars, last light. He knew the night would soon arrive, the turquoise honey glow. First stars above the freeways full of cars, the downtown towers lit, alive with golden bustle. And he knew that wintertime would soon arrive, lamps on each afternoon by 5, leaf-freeing gusts and sleet, blue, cold sun, the Christmas music on in elevators. And he knew death strikes, at Mom now, then at you, him, everyone. So every dawn he prays for breath and life. When gone, who knows? He knows he's still alive, that death might happen during drive or dance with Christmas music on. And now we will get to our featured readers, and all of them are people not only that have published their work in both Roselli Press anthologies and support them through various readings like this, but also published individual collections by them, and they're excellent books. They're not only wonderful poets, they're wonderful people. They've been very kind to me over the years, and I'm very, very grateful for all their support. So I want to thank them before we get started. We're going to begin. We have 4 readers, 5 including me, and then the open mics. But including me, David D. Horowitz, we have Victoria Ford, Donald Kentop, Michael Spence, and Joni Stangland. And we'll be reading in that order, and I'll be reading second. We're going alphabetically. Victoria Ford has published 2 chapbooks, Following the Swan from Fireweed Press in Madison, Wisconsin in 1989, and Rain Psalm, Roselli Press. I published it in 1996. For many years, Victoria taught English at Seattle Central Community College and Antioch University, Seattle. She lives in Seattle and currently works at an educational software company. Victoria, please come on up and share some of your wonderful poetry.
How's that? Good. Well, thank you, Michael and David and everyone who's here, and I look forward to hearing everyone's reading. When we sing, we are. When we sing, we are ripples arriving, tassels of meadow grass, stones of a stream bed, the gold of finch, swaying and rooted, the fluke of the blue whale, greening leaves. Has anyone read Marie Kondo's The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up? No? No? Well, what you're supposed to do is take all your stuff of one kind, like sweaters or shirts or whatever, and put all those things in the middle of a room and hold each one and ask yourself, does this spark joy? And if the answer is not yes, it needs to move along. Does this spark joy? This poem is called Disorder at the Book Collectors. Do I stack you in towers of hello and because everything else, slit eyes in the dark? Do I listen as each opens, how like a breath its inch of light? The panorama a measure in every exhale, time, but a howl stills the raising of dust and word where the walls held hands. Do I step, come, out with the volume high as this candle? I was playing around with making up collective nouns like murder of crows, gaggle of geese, school of fish, and having some fun doing that. And then last November, the world just seemed to get more serious. This is called a stand of collectives, a cumulonimbus of facts, a gasp of votes, a wobble of certainties, a dustpan of regrets, a link of complacencies, a hacking of trusts, a hard drive of entitlements, a spreadsheet of thieves, a remembrance of doors, a sidewalk of options, an adequacy of stepladders, an endurance of cobblestones, a breath of senses, a room of bridges, a morning of hands, a street of freedoms. "16 years ago, a then conservative-minded Supreme Court eroded some of the federal powers that favored environmental laws, including the Migratory Bird Protection Act. Well, I couldn't let that go. So I wrote this called Who Will Tell the Finch, and it just made me think of birds everywhere. And in doing so, I found myself reading what different poets had written. And so there are quotations in here representing Missouri is Patty Ann Rogers, Wisconsin, Aldo Leopold, Indiana, James Whitcomb Riley, Ohio, Mary Oliver, and Iowa, Amy Clampett. So the poetic words from those states are from those poets. Who will tell the finch? It's just an old Chicago strip mine where rain invites the odd duck and the city wants a dump. So plow under the puddles and leave mallard or heron to migrate elsewhere. There's no room at this inn. Give an inch to a duck, every migratory bird for miles around will clamor reclamation. Let them get over what the strip mine was before in Illinois. They will die in Missouri until the marsh wren no longer composes gold circles widening on the blue surface of the sun's pond, or in Wisconsin until spring no longer comes with the upland plover, wings a quiver, circling among the woolly clouds. They will not hear, back home again in Indiana, the chirrup of the robin and the whistle of the quail, piping across the meadows sweet as any nightingale. In Ohio, the hummingbird will no longer wake like a small green angel to soak his dark tongue in happiness. Or in Iowa, the western meadowlark dawn, a liquid millennium arising from the still eastward-looking venue of the dark. What are we, if not a choir of states, swaying to the same page, each one clear as a sky and attuned to its phrase of blue? For whom would the chord arrange the last word on spring, if not a Minnesotan, eyes glinting against the streak of snow geese, feathering hope north? If not the court, washing its hands of one note, one neighborhood, then who conducts the chord of burrow, business, and bird? Then who will tell the finch we hold its breath, trilling our separate state over that of woven sun? House finch, a 5-inch cliff from which its warble waterfalls and falls, a strain over engine, an air over dog, an anthem over iris and infant, a measure of telephone line and lung, this rose-breasted he, this twig-streaked she, this head-humming, wing-waxing, throat-throbbing part of the planet sings, skies, settles, remembers this one song, this one song. And I'd like to finish with a poem from David's anthology, and thank you, David, again. Spring. 3-year-olds muster in red, blue, yellow, purple clusters of primrose. Sun, rain, root lore bud, and the apple tree burst pink, drops, drives into green. Of all the lessons I went out to find, I found you this white blossom. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Really beautiful, compelling reading. And I'm always impressed by how much we need to listen to our more quieter, more contemplative voices in an age of screaming, accusation, dogma, blaming. It's a pleasure to hear the considered, the measured, the thoughtful, the well-imaged, the well-crafted. Thank you. I'm just going to dive in. The bright side. My scalp's a golden dome. I never need a comb. Revealing. Paint can highlight and conceal in beige or tan, ecru or teal. Pink, melon, pumpkin, cream, or shell, on wall, door, cabinet, or shelf. But as I cover and conceal, I notice how these paints reveal shape, relationships with other stuff, and surfaces, both smooth and rough. All this, then, from a little can of shell or cream, ecru or tan. Scoreboard election. American religion. Win. And losing is sin. To win close elections, you don't need millions of bucks or backers, just several sharp computer hackers. House Fit for a King, December 2016. Sure, move in and no need for hand truck, boxes, pallets. It's not the White House now. It's Caesar's Palace. Ex-champion. I must win contests, must win prizes, must stay driven. Relentless as a jaguar, focused as an eagle, brutal as million boulder avalanche. I must win. Cannot endure defeat by every wimp and noodle. Accepting loss must be the final unforgiven. I'll stand atop the summit, but I might not reach it first. I marvel at this view, but you can boo and call me cursed, a loser. Losing joy and kindness, that's the worst. In the minefield, the woman who last night felt so alone, today mid-conversation slams down phone. The man who just receives huge charge card bill, tomorrow goes to work, prepared to kill. The woman who just yesterday felt bridal, today was jilted, now she's suicidal. Friend deepens empathy. In minefield world, she'll offer gift card, roses, thoughtful word, or simply warming hand on tension's shoulder, reducing stresses massive as a boulder. Friday evening's 50 stories. The stapler's whapped its final document in this fluorescent week. No conference calls till blooming Monday. Drop a chocolate mint in mug of decaf blend and stir. The walls remain as beige as patience. Exit signs burn emerald stencil through the shadowed halls. As 50 stories down, a siren whines, some faint emergency, and tension falls from tired heart. Oh, what a week! A waltz across a minefield, stroll through shooting range. The scarlet rose I bought last Monday wilts, but twilight, opal after Thursday's rains. Unloading. I stuff more meetings into calendar and cram responsibilities. Soon leisure cannot breathe. I sprint through morning schedule, break through traffic jam, text, I'll be late, jam, see you soon. I smile, seethe, imagine weeping myself calm, and then I rush once traffic clears and pray I don't cause accidents. But now, no, please, nothing. Just a tranquil hush, please, nothing. Let me sit here. Please don't make me tense. Just nothing. Clear the underbrush. No meetings, times, a room where I can play, tell jokes to jonquils, laugh at dust. I needn't guide a novice, lead 5 teams, and run for city council. Now I need to loaf and not be told I owe. I love the scarlet rose, vase, lamplit valley view. I love how twilight glows. Extension. Hand separates to fingers, fringe, and forearm leads to elbows hinge. There's beefy bicep bulging strength, and shoulders sloping into length. My hand, a tool to help me reach, snare, tie, connect, release, free, read, compose. My fingers fringe my hand and join yours, bridging island, land. All that, lust, volcano, earthquake, heat wave, storm, and flood, yields little sticky purple bud. Spring. A sparrow hops upon a twig to reach the blossom pink. I swig the sunshine, greenery, and chill. My blood hums brisk elation. Still, spring means I'm 1 year older. Well, if happy, gray means cure. I shrug at former cause of rage. Why lug that misery? A sparrow hops upon a twig. Sparrow. I'm an ounce of flit and bounce, an inch of hop and flinch. I chirp and chatter, perch and scatter, alert. Still, the world can kill and think it doesn't matter. A final gift. How quickly taunts and threats can escalate to punches, kicking, shooting, help. Too late. Blood trickles from a corpse to gutter grate, on stream of alcohol and meth adrift, to gurney placed in ambulance, free lift, in ambulance to morgue, a final gift. A midnight sidewalk brawl, another murder, soon workday, blare of horns, clang of girder. Moment. 5 people shot dead on the south side. Gang suspected. Man murders girlfriend. Facebook rant. I'm disrespected. Man threatens cops. Shouts, I am Jesus resurrected and this is Judgment Day. No quickie pill for violence. There's knife, gun. Here's free will. There's loves and tantrums heat. Here's hatred's chill. Here's scarlet moment, ringed by silent gray. Rough day. Today, 10 terror bombings in Iraq, a rape and murder down my block, an apricot translucence, quarter moon of silent distance yielding to maroon black night. This brawl of appetite, most life can rest and dream till dawn, the bruising light. Rising prices for victims of a marketplace bombing. In Baghdad, for vegetables, some beg, and others pay an arm and a leg. Water of the Tigris River. A bomb in Baghdad, booms, then flames and chars. Apartment fronts and blocks of dented cars, explodes wood crates of dates and figs, clay olive jars and silver trays of baklava and burek. Black smoke still smolders from an ancient Buick. A face-down corpse still clutches loaf of bread. The muddy Tigris flows, a drop more red. Near mosque, a mother weeps at wall, at stars. A few more. Standing for Afghan women campaigning for office. They whisper rumors' echoes, poison name and reputation, murmur fault and fabrication, then assault with silence, hate note, death sign, daggered blame. They ostracize integrity. I stay a candidate and I campaign. They pelt with innuendo. Arson cannot melt my courage. I will never go away. They brand me enemy. To me, they're my electoral opponents. I forgive mistakes, but not their shouting, she should die. I counter, let democracy live. Victims, new peace talks, great. But will that stop their wars? Each shouts, my people suffer more than yours. 2 more. Don't forget. Jay hollers, don't forget Bar Kokhba. But peace shouts, don't defend al-Nakba. Jay hollers, don't forget Masada. But peace shouts, remember Intifada. Jay hollers, Auschwitz, the pogroms. But peace shouts, you forced us from our homes. Both shout, they started this. Bomb, flame the enemy, and stoke eternal blame. Jay hollers, now you killed my mother. But peace shouts, your troops shot my brother. Jay thinks, shalom, salam, they rhyme. And I will close with this poem. Cat shelter. Oak planks extend from walls. On floor, 8 hampers with door and air holes. Service feline campers curled up inside on checkered flannel pads. Cats snooze as lamplit traffic cruises past the plate glass windows guarding them. Twilight, half tabby, licks her forepaws clean. Stylight, half Persian, mellow as a meatloaf, rests with paws and tail enfolded, purrs and nests. Augustin, Swami, sprint, munch tuna, lap fresh water, stretch a bit and start to nap as twilight calms her grooming, meditates on traffic, lamplight, moon, and gutter grates. I pass the windows, grin, not tapping glass, admiring their quietude, the gloss of creamy, sable, cloudy fur, suave, cool. Their room's penumbra glints a golden jewel for every open eye, and twilight sniffs the night for danger, finding none. I breathe, stare, not budging. For here's contentment, peace, and calm, as much as could be heard in any song. Tomorrow they might yowl and scamper, dispute 2 inches in a hamper, who knows, but now no whimper. Calm pervades my blood. Their silence slows me. Night provides these cats example. Yes, I'd rather nestle into a comfy bed tonight than wrestle with more detail. I'd rather purr than hiss. I'll sharpen claws tomorrow. Now I'll kiss and hug, connect and meditate in silence, and leave the world its haste and violence. Thank you very much. Very kind. We have a wonderful poet, Donald Kentop, is next. Great guy, great poet. He's published 2 collections, On Paper Wings, Rosalie Press 2004, which I published, and it's on sale over there, and Frozen by Fire, Paper Wings Press 2014, just a marvelous book, and Don has brought some copies. He has been a jackstraw writer, performed at the Bumbershoot and Burning Word festivals, and has had his poems published in numerous journals and anthologies, such as Drash, Mute Note, Earthward, and the 2 Rosalie Press anthologies. He is a retired substance abuse counselor and lives in Seattle with his wife, Carol. Don Kentop.
My first reading will be from my collection. It's a documentary in verse of the Triangle Factory Fire in New York City, very historic, important fire, particularly in the American labor movement. And I'll read the title poem, Frozen by Fire. There are only 2 or 3 structured poems in the collection, and this one takes the sonnet form. And in this poem, Frozen by Fire, I tried to capture the feeling of the suffering that occurred around the fire. And the reason I wrote the book is that I went to school at NYU in 1952, and 41 years before, that's where the fire took place, in the building that we attended some classes in. But there were no plaques and no one knew, well, I didn't know about it. And when I found out many, many years later, I found it very troubling. And the way to put that to rest seemed to me to be to write this book, which tells the story in verse. Frozen by fire, an epigraph in the world that he created as he willed. Rage and wail, collapse, and let the world see how we grieve in Bialystok and mourn in Sicily, how we rip the hateful shirtwaists from our backs and rend the voile-tucked batiste and horrid high-stand collars, how we tear the flat felt seams and plackets, pull our hair and dress in black, wear sackcloth, dust our heads seated low on boxes, ashamed to be alive, frozen by fire. We lift our hands to heaven and we call and wait for God to answer. How can we defend him in the face of such injustice? We cannot. And so we kneel and pray the De Profundis and rise for the Kaddish. Here's a fairly recent poem called Endgame. Everybody knows a few couples who've gone gray together, square, solid as a block of wood, who willingly have forfeited their claim to all they own, their name, their first person singular, deconstructed for a pluralized entity called we. Some say they staked their plot of ground and hunkered down too soon, rather than to chance the field and fail. Well, if they did so gladly. And satisfied, it was easy to ignore the endgame waiting to be played. And while it's true that half our marriages end badly, when it comes to holding love, there is no evermore, just now. Because if given time enough, every love affair ends sadly. Borderland. This poem is metered, not rhymed, but kind of maybe didn't intend to do it that way, but the last part of the poem, there's an awful lot of alliteration, and I'd call that to your attention. You might find that interesting. It's part of, it's a poem about one of my favorite landscapes in the state of Washington. The clouds, ripe with rain, curl across the North Pacific sky for days before they scrape the West Olympic slopes and spill their water to feed the Quileute and Ho. The first pressing spares Seattle. Then the Cascades rise and wring them dry. I drive eastward from Snoqualmie Pass. Their fingers follow me and claw between the peaks behind my back, then dissipate in sunlight. I could settle here along the climate's edge, its mixed parentage, a blend of forest and of open space, where mountains yield to yellow meadowlands, a narrow zone that zigzags north and south by half an hour wide before the rain savanna vanishes and chaparral replaces pine. From here you travel east to get to cowboy country and the West. The heart attack. He lay sprawled across the parking strip, face down among the leaves and maple roots. Lucky we were home when Mrs. Cobb, the upstairs lady, pounded on our door. There's a man had a heart attack out on the sidewalk. We rolled him over, saw he was alive, and looked at her to tell us what to do. It's best we take him in the house, she said. We hauled him rubber-legged up the stairs, banged our way into her apartment, and flopped him on the bed. "Thank you so much," she said, as if we had just poured tea. The booze wore off a bit, and he began to sing, and she silently slipped off his shoes. Oh, here's one that just happened to pop up. Indelible. In a world where we're looking for permanent things. Stick me deep, keep the pigments bright and fast. Let the skulls and roses seep and sink into my skin. Drive the bleeding needle home. Color me to last. Ink me to the bone. William Butler Yeats is going to get quoted again. Here's a poem of mine called The Parade, and the first two lines are from a Yeats poem called The Spur. And this is the spur. It's very short. You think it horrible that lust and rage should dance attention upon my old age? They were not such a plague when I was young. What else have I to spur me into song? Well, I used those first two lines and then wrote my own poem, The Parade. You think it horrible that lust and rage should dance attention upon my old age? More horrible is of my sins so few have lost their temper. None was softened due to charity or wisdom, less to prayer than to growing old. So unaware what time could do for me, I was seduced by virtue, milled to find myself reduced and made more fungible, a side effect of age. I had no reason to expect a gift. If aging can be understood as grace, then death may in itself be good. Go, tell those at the rear of the parade to step lively and not to be afraid. Okay. Quality time. Over there, a boy lost in the bottom of a paper cup is making sucking noises through a straw, the father planning their allotted time. The boy is wet, his hair is matted, his face ruddy from the game. Fries and burger wrappers rise between them like a berm. The boy speaks only to negotiate the video and pizza toppings for tonight. He swings his legs and bangs his muddy cleats against the chair. The father guides him out the door and runs his fingers through his hair. How am I doing? Okay. A couple more. The Scent of Cedar. Remembering John T. Williams, born 1960, died 2010. You may remember who he is after you hear the poem. He coaxed small totem poles from cedar limbs he carved with a simple folding knife. The stacked eagles and ravens, the beavers and wolves, all in balance. His hands were steadied by ancestors who soothed his tremors long enough to bless his work and see him stagger on his way, and killed by 4 bullets from a jumpy cop. Most saw him a lost soul, but he called himself Free Spirit. We wondered, free from what? The tyranny of socks? The oppression of pillows? Another week in detox? He had a family and a song we did not know. We cannot fully mourn him. He was Nu'uchanulth. The ancients of his tribe were proud of him, yet wept. He sat cross-legged and freed the spirits trapped inside the wood. The chips fell around his worn Adidas, while the scent of cedar sweetened the Seattle air. Time for one more, I think. Haven't read this for a while. Another sonnet. This one in the full tradition of the sonnet. And it's a romantic sonnet called To My Wife. I wondered once who loved the other more, until I caught you lingering on my face, and there in yours I saw an opened door that framed the sky. I held you close to brace myself to keep from falling. Then a part of me, some desiccated rind, shrank back while on the brink. But in your spacious heart I saw you as you are, my shameful lack forgiven, the joy my smallest virtue brings, space to swing my arms about with room to spare, to play a fool. I heard what sings in me from you. No more do I presume by wondering as I had done before. If I could love like you, I'd love you more. Thank you.
That was wonderful, Don. Just a magnificent range of subjects, but with that kind of quiet, mature sonority, which gives it a certain consistency, kind of the sound, the tone. Just marvelous work. We have two more poets. No diminution of quality. They're both marvelous. Michael Spence has published 5 full-length collections. The Spine from Purdue University, 1987. Adam Chooses, Rose Alley, 1998, which I published, and a few copies are over there. Crush Depth, Truman State University, 2009. The Bus Driver's Threnody, Truman State, 2014. And his newest, Umbilical, copies are available for sale, which won the New Criterion Prize several years ago and was published by St. Augustine's Press. His work has appeared in numerous journals, including Poetry, Southern Review, and Sewanee Review, and you named the prestigious journal, and his work has appeared in it. Michael's a retired Metro bus driver. He lives in Tukwila with his wife, writer and teacher Sharon Hashimoto. Michael Spence.
Thank you, David, and everyone else here, Michael as well. Let's see if I get this more or less right. Oh. Okay. Hope that will suffice. Thanks again for everyone showing up tonight. There are so many places you could be instead, and so, as David said, we very much appreciate your being here. I'm going to start off with a poem whose title is Oppidum, and that's Caesar's term for a hill town lived in by Celts. Oppidum. In the age of iron, a man emerges from his hut. He carries a metal bowl, the sun polishing its curve as he walks to a huge wall. He helped his tribe to build this rampart around their hill, blocks of unhewn stone without mortar, held in place by their weight alone. Erecting giant statues to Mars, Rome calls his people savage. Of the figures built to his gods, not one is taller than a man. He sits and unwraps his tools, etching a filigree fine as web. His chisel carves the bowl, threads of light coil and fall. A boy runs past, but stops before the man's hut. Edging closer, the child stares up at the dark niches carved above the door. Then he laughs at what he sees. The skulls of enemies grin down at him, as though they hear his cries. They also once had eyes. My other tongue-twisty, unusual titled poem, this is for Arlene Naganawa, a member of our writing group. and she did a workshop in which she brought up this image, and I wrote this poem based on it. The title is Avacetina. Your name from a bird, you are pre-bird, a long illuminated whip of sea creature, head vaguely avian. To your depth, light does not reach. We bring our own so we can see you sharper than you see us. But you truly are illuminated, a strand of sun coiling far below the surface, where the real sun floats its broken pieces, trying to assemble an animal as sinuous as you. Harboring your narrow light, you glide through a darkness of overwhelming pressure, you with no need for wings. As David pointed out, I was a bus driver for about 30 years, Metro, and my book before this, Bus Driver's Threnody, is full of that sort of thing. But as we all know, when we keep plugging away with this sort of thing, you keep on getting ideas from your life from the past. And I've been still writing some other bus driving poems and some Navy poems, even though I've been out of the Navy for 37 years now. This poem is a bus driving poem. It's called Way Station. Only a couple of people have been killed at the transit center where I catch my bus. That's not counting the one who jumped from the top of the parking garage, or the wheelchair man beaten by that gang. He didn't die. I need to put these things out of my mind. I never learned to drive. I thought I'd have my husband a lot longer. I can't forget completely. You have to stay alert. I heard another rider say, this place is haunted. It makes me imagine ghosts are circling the station to shroud us with their white, to erase us the way they've been erased. It scares me to think like this, but for now, I'll have to wrap the fear inside myself. Here comes my bus. Don brought up the sonnet, a great venerable form to use, and I love to mess around with myself. I invite you all to do that if you haven't done yourself. We could get into a big debate about how much you can twist the form and take elements out of it and still call it a sonnet. I might want more elements than you, but we could have a discussion. And this poem changes my variations here where I change the line lengths. And you'll know why from the poem. It's called Broken Sonnet, Divorce. I never knew the birds the way she did. To me, a cormorant appeared to be an egret who shed all his colors for black. I forget if herons will mate for life. Do the males flock or do they fly alone? I need to find the name of one who leaves the land behind, making flight his home. The wind will choose which feathers line a nest and which glide into mist. Next, I want to read two poems that come out of World War II. My father was on a submarine during World War II. He doesn't show up in these poems, but still, that's part of my motivation. This is called When Those at Home First See. Nearly 2 years pass after Pearl was bombed before we're allowed to see a photo of our dead. And even this is late. The three soldiers half buried in the sand as if unsure to hide or be revealed. Breakers rock and smooth the beach. Men surface like starfish washed ashore by some turmoil undersea. Irregularities. The dead lie as though holding the ground more tightly since it has lost its hold on them. Or has the tide halted their burial with its now I come and now I leave, forever leaving them in the seam between the sand and water? And still we see no faces, just the fabric of uniforms wet with dark, then drying. This leaves us to imagine the ones we love or the ones we think are nameless. Palm up, the arm that lies extended neither points nor grasps, but does not let us go. Comes out of an actual incident read about in the paper some time ago. This one's called The Long Life of Death. We finally hear the news we've been praying for on August 15th, 1945. Japan surrendered. It's the end of the war, the guy beside me bellows. We're still alive. Shooting and scrambling all over the rock of Okinawa for so long, it seems we were born doing it. At first we're in shock. Is this a rumor? Some Tojo trick? But the screams of joy are spreading like flames through the palm fronds. We're going home at last. Why did God spare the men around me? We'll have a life beyond all this. Yelling, we fire our guns into the air. The shouts of celebration turn to cries of surprise and pain. GIs are spouting red, twisting, falling. 7 of us die as the bullets rain back down on our heads. I have a alter ego named Ben Brown, and he's kind of me, kind of not me. He vocalizes a lot of my angst, or angst I think I should vocalize and don't sometimes. So that's the fun thing, you can invent characters who are, so you can play around with their voices. And so this one he's focused a lot on the writing world. And this one is called The Famous Writer Counseling Ben Brown. Career, forget it. Everything will come in its own time. Intoned the guy who'd won 2 Guggenheims, whose 7 volumes of poetry were published by Knopf, whose work that week appeared in the New Yorker and the Atlantic. You're better off not thinking of awards or publications, for writing poems, the man said, smiling like a garden gnome, is a vocation, not a business. His Oxfords squealing high as a laugh when he turned, he left his listener in the hall. I've learned, thought Brown with a sigh, I'll get nowhere with a commercial house. I can't charm even the literary, their names like law firms, Farrar, Straus and Giroux, Harcourt, Brace, Jovanovich. I've given up on college presses like LSU. There's no hope I'll be jerked awake by a Lannan or MacArthur phone call. I never dreamed I'd scale those blinding peaks, but had aimed at the foothills. What more do I drop to make me pure enough? How low do I set my sights? Looking down, he knew, till I shoot my work boots off. This poem is based on what I consider the tragic event of September 11, 2001, in that it, in my opinion, drove us all under the beds and tore up our Constitution, and we have yet to crawl out from under the beds since. This is called The Edge of Fall. We claimed that we were number 1, so in New York, we said it twice. The towers thrust into the skies like a Roman numeral 2. The sun touched them first like a light on a stage. But others saw the bars that stripe a dollar sign. This morning wipes the buildings from the day's blue page. Now we see the towers rise again through their ghosts, dark and straight, engraving the September date in Arabic, 11. And I would like to close with the title poem, which is a sonnet also, as a matter of fact, although I played around with the rhyme scheme a bit. And also, another debate you can have is full rhyme, half rhyme. So if everyone have the debate with me, feel free. This is for my mother. It's called Umbilical. Not flesh, but string, the line which bound your foot to mine, hobbling me so you could nap and not worry I would wander loose those summer afternoons. But who could sleep in such light? No boy of 8. I'd wait until your breath grew even. Holding mine, I'd sit up slowly, carefully work the knot, a ball of snake coils, small but intricate as tripwires. One day I slipped the noose, eased off the creaking bed. I felt my face tighten around the eyes. Afraid you'd call me back, I tiptoed toward the doorway. No sign I'd wakened you. I listened, then took a step through, and saw the darkness of the long hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was wonderful. And I should have invited somebody from Farrar, Straus, and Giroux to hear Ben Brown tonight. We can all identify. You hit something there. We can all identify. We've got one more featured poet, just a marvelous poet, a wonderful person. Joni Stangland is the author of In Both Hands and Into the Rumored Spring, both from Ravenna Press, and copies are available tonight in the front there. And Weathered Steps from Rose Alley Press, which I published, and A Steady Longing for Flight, winner of the 1995 Floating Bridge Chapbook Award. That was the first year that award was offered. She has been a jackstraw writer, and her poems have appeared in Crab Creek Review, Hubbub, First Water, Best of Pyrene's Fountain, Valparaiso Poetry Review, and many, many other journals and anthologies. Joni Stangland, please come up and share some of your work, Joni.
Oh, the mic is perfect. This is great. Thank you all for being here. I realize I'm the last thing standing between you all and open mic, which I am looking forward to hearing the open mic poems. And because there has been so much talk about sonnets tonight, I'm mixing things up. And I thought I would open with this poem, which is a villanelle. I do not have a lot of confidence about this, but, so this is a villanelle that I wrote about my grandma, and I don't know if you had this experience of having a woman in your life, a mom or a grandma, who would say, I have to put my face on, because they put their makeup on before they'd go out. So this is about my grandma and putting on her face, and it is called The Ritual. At the vanity she puts on her face, the plastic compacts of powder and blush, a grown woman's way to fit into place. Before she steps out of the house, erase the crow's feet, laugh lines left by her year's rush. At the vanity she puts on her face, and sees in the mirror this newer grace, her old youth like another girlhood crush, a grown woman's way to fit into place, kept in drawers of lipstick, pencils, her case of colored shadows, her womanly hush at the vanity she puts on her face every morning. And now this curious race is looking glamorous, its silken shush a grown woman's way to fit into place. A small girl stands by, eager to embrace this ritual, thinks she feels powers flush at the vanity she puts on her face, a grown woman's way to fit into place. So that was from Many Trails to the Summit. I brought some books here tonight, but I decided that since it was a Rose Alley Press, I was mostly going to read Rose Alley poems. So that's what I'm doing. And so this next one is a sonnet, and it's from Limbs of the Pine, Peaks of the Range, and it's called When What Lives Will Thrive. What happened is when we had... I'm not sure how much this goes to. So when my husband and I got married, I wanted to do all those things. Like first I was going to grow my own flowers. Let me tell you, this was a mistake. I planted all these white flowers, which mostly kind of went to weeds. But we bought some standard roses, you know, the kind that looks like a little tree with a little rose on top. And then I had this great idea, okay, and then I'm going to plant them and we'll have them forever. But those grafted roses are very tender, so... When what lives will thrive. The wedding roses open, a scarlet snarl of petals ruffling in a stiff breeze. Reminder this chipped terracotta pot once held standard forms made to look like trees, white flowers grafted onto stronger stalk. That unblemished cultivar did not last, succumbed to the usual troubles, black spot, powdery mildew, aphids and rust. But below, the root began to burgeon. New shoots appeared, a tender green advance. Years after that hot August afternoon, we abandoned our plans for elegance and even white, found our own way to wear the years, let the roses be what they are. So then what happened is my daughter decided she should turn the garden into a vegetable garden. So various things ensued, but now we're down to one wedding rose, but we are still married. Coming up on 20 years. So now I'd like to read a couple poems from Weathered Steps. This first one is, actually I'm changing my mind. This first one is Steps. I thought about this poem the other day because, everyone's out mowing their grass. You know how that smells when everyone's out mowing their grass? Okay. This first warm night of spring, I asked my mother to stay and eat at the small home we'll leave soon. Garlic cloves, rosemary, balsamic, fragrant oil, extra virgin, pairs with chicken. It needs time to cook, so we sit on the narrow front stairs, drink red wine, and talk the way mothers and daughters who are mothers rarely have a chance. These weathered steps have carried large moments, birth coming up, death carted down. In this liquid hour, the sun paints tall firs on the golf course a block beyond, where gulls muddle before a storm front. A deep aroma spills from the oven. Sweet peppers sizzle in the pan, blend with the green smell of a fresh-cut lawn. Now the light pulls back thin. Dusk drops its veil over the roses, the scuffed porch, and stories we begin in the doorway of our old house. So now I'm going to flash forward to read a couple of new things. And this first I'm reading partly in Michael Dylan Welch's honor. This poem refers to the tsunami and subsequent meltdown at Fukushima in 2011, right? Okay. Half-life. Are the cherries blooming yet? Have people come back to walk under the boughs, to walk in rose light, 10 billion petal stars? Have the trees outlived the half-life? Disaster came with the sea. Disaster fell with the rain, the soft spring rain. Disaster lapped up by roots, a terrible thirst. The limbs embraced each tender rupture, a giant yes where no one could hear it, gone another year. This next poem is called In the Country Called Marriage. The sky's an orchard, peach harvest, of another morning we peel and swallow, a cure for yesterday's mistakes, my doubts in blue cotton dresses, the watch running backwards. Every year's another tree we sleep under, while cows in the pasture doze and chew. The horse shifts her weight, and sparrows hide from the heat. Myself a bird that flew out of my attic, the whole flock of me fleeing. With a better sense of direction, I could draw a map for you, chart north or a kind of peace, like the climbing rose where finches perch, and I might build a nest of me. Dawn or dusk, that cusp opens a door to the day's temporal meadows of rue and surprise, or the night's hushed assurance when we sit together, the porch light unmasking, snow falling, or the finest rain. I'd like to close with this poem. I remember I used to know this poet. She would always get up and she'd start her poem. She'd say, everything in this poem is true. So everything in this poem is true, and it has an epigraph. The poem is called How We Are Living, and the epigraph is from nobelprize.org. The Nobel Prize in Physics 2016 was divided, one half awarded to blah, 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 blah. Okay, so moving on. For theoretical discoveries of topological phase transitions and topological phases of matter. And I just need to preface this by saying I am not a physicist. Okay. Suddenly, a state I never dreamed of and topological phase makes me think of mountains shifting into clouds, but that's a different kind of map. I'm hearing about this, not ice or water, steam wreathing the skin of the woman after her bath in pastels by Degas, but years before you saw me, scientists wrote about a stage beyond that matter triad, the tones between the piano's black and white keys, a slimming flatter than flapjack bug on the windshield splat like that night we drove through a dusk of wings as thin as ghosts on the road to Red Bluff. The radio says quantum computing, much faster calculations, the way an express train speeds past while the local jolts along as we're rushing away from our birth, away from that fall we met, and years after, our first kiss. Oh, that first long kiss on the dance floor that changed the state of everything. Someone strumming a washboard, 3 cars merging into my lane, the trees changing, orange to red to rain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your poems, for sharing your words. And thank you, David. I didn't know you had just retired. So maybe that means that although you spend so much time on the press, you'll have more time for it. What will happen next? I'd like to actually read my contribution to Many Trails, a selection of 13 haiku. This is called Seasoning, and it's a romp through the 4 seasons. Scattered petals, the thud of my books in the book drop. Mountain spring, in my cupped hand, pine needles. Tulip festival, the colors of all the cars in the parking lot. Meteor shower, a gentle wave wets our sandals. Summer moonlight, the potter's wheel slows. First day of school, I eat my buckwheat pancakes in silence. A crabapple from the highest branch rattles down the rain spout. First cold night, the click of your domino as we play by the fire. First snow, the children's hangers clatter in the closet. Warm winter evening, the chairs askew after the poetry reading. Valentine's Day, she reminds me to fasten my seatbelt. Hospital waiting room, the drinking fountain stops humming. And the last one. Children's book. Shh. Elves. So I'd like to remind you that the next Soul Food Poetry Night is coming up on June 15 and will feature poets contributing to Floating Bridge Press. So we'll be very fortunate to have them with us on June 15. Please come back. How many of you are here for the very first time at Soul Food Poetry Night? Quite a few hands. Welcome. Glad you could make it. You do not have to sign up for open mic, but please feel free if you'd like to. I'm glad you came, and please, I do want you to come back. Let's take a short break here. Let's get something to eat from our Soul Food Coffee House hosts. And we'll be back in a few minutes with our open mic reading, and please sign up if you haven't yet done so. Once again, thank you to Rose Alley Press.
Keeps it alive.
It's time to get started again. I think we've lost a few people, so we are the few, the proud. Thank you for sticking around. We have 8 or 9 people signed up for our open mic, which is a nice list. Our question of the month for our open mic reading this month is the first car you remember riding in. And something that's interesting in the answers is that people seem to want to mention the color of the car most of the time. And several of them are red, which is, I think, part of the story, including the first poet who we'll hear from, Ken Davies, whose first car he remembers riding in was a 61 Comet with a red steering wheel. Come on up, Ken.
Thank you. My grandma's car, and it had a red steering wheel, and she had nervous thumbs, and her 61 Comet, the red wore off, and there were the little white marks. And then when she got the 64 or 5 Comet, the steering wheel, by then it didn't wear off anymore. And I've got a story about that, but I'm not going to read that. So I'm doing the iPad thing here, so bear with me a little bit here. I've got some brand new stuff that I'll start with here. And this doesn't have a title. Well, I guess it's poetry from the atomic age. And it's very current. I won't explain it, but when you hear it, you'll understand what it's about. And there's a dirty word in here, and I'll just say bleep when I come to it, and you guys will know exactly what it's supposed to be. You can say it if you want. I'm not going to say it, because I'll say it too loud. He who lives in reinforced underground concrete bunkers should not throw stones. This is 575, version 1. Wind blows through my soul, lives in the hands of mad men. Harry S. Truman. And this is 575, version 2. Hand on the button, the brink of apocalypse, redwood embers glow. And this is Lake Hills Elementary, 1962. This awful feeling in the pit of my stomach. Remember, kids, duck and cover. Duck and cover. Oh, bleep, not this again. And these are stolen from Ferlinghetti and Ginsberg. And nutless Nagasaki survivors float by, and I am waiting for the Salvation Army to take over while I listen to the crack of doom on the hydrogen jukebox. And this one's called Hairdos. Let's face it, folks, neither one has a very good hairdo, so mad men with mad bombs and shitty hairdos are in control of control and chaos, and we sit all tucked in, all this evolution for nothing. And then the last one is, this last piece is called, well, I'm going to read another one, but the last of this little set is called A Tiny Ray of Hope in a World Led by Dopes. And the atom bomb rears its ugly head, and the petulant, spoiled kids play in their sandbox, flinging sand and insults and threats, and they play with their rockets in the streets, and we line up and cheer and cry and suck it up one more time, hoping against hope that cooler comb-overs and bowl cuts will prevail. Just do another little thing here. Okay. I ride Amtrak a lot. I look out the window and I just write down what I see. And last time I was here, I read from my piece that I rode the train from Seattle to Memphis. This one is called Amtrak, Portland to Eugene, April 2014. And I never edit these. I just write them, and then I just leave them. So I'd probably get a C- from Miss Rowe on this one, because it's a little choppy. And a rusty bridge, and the station so majestic, saintly Portland, Oregon, old town trying hard to be hip, and me, full of new ideas and old ideas, and the slumped awnings and cable-suspended walking bridge, all new. The silos and the rose garden and the popcorn spilling Trains and tracks and new apartments built on the river, and the ship sits still, pumps filling holds with the gold of Monsanto. Monsanto is not that bad, especially when you have sticker bushes. And the Union Pacific and the Bulls and the Billy Club swung at the Drifter, and dreadful Portland with walls scribbled by spray paint. Behold, gorgeous Portland, alive with a new tint, a new shade. The vibration of the rails makes me come alive. The river, the reactor, the generator, my thoughts in a state of defluence. Longing for New Orleans and Chicago and Los Angeles and the open road. The wheat and the fruit trees and the potatoes and the onions and the artichokes roll by the window, amazing me. And the broken hearts and broken windows, and the fairway is the only fair way. Genuine America leisurely goes about her day, and the vision for these verses is you, and I am inspired by you, and you are inspired by me. I hope so. And in Milwaukee, you're misspelled, but named for the rails just the same, and the dreams of the great railroad men, spikes driven and tunnels blasted through shale, who built the great line stretching from Atlantic to Pacific, from New York to Colorado to Frisco, and here we are again, the coast starlight rolling southbound. Kerouac, an open gondola and an old bum, eating cheese sandwiches on the verge of the atomic catastrophe. Sunday afternoon, full of fear, worried about it. Take me all the way to LA, great straight line of steel and rods and rusty roots. And I'm going to read one more piece here. Is that it? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, we've got a lot of readers still to go. Yeah. Thank you. Our let's keep it to maybe 2 or 3 minutes. We don't want to keep SoulFood open too much beyond closing time. Our next reader is Nick. Is it Satnick? Satnick. And so I remember when I was a little kid, our car had no seat belts at all. And then I remember seat belts were required. And then they had this new invention that Nick mentions here, riding in his dad's old red car with automatic seat belts. Please welcome Nick.
Can I just say that the seat belts were the only redeeming quality of that car? There we go, okay. Alrighty, this poem is a poem, is the mic okay? Yes? Okay. This poem is a poem I wrote a while ago, and it's called The Pyre. Grayed ice spills from the burn pyre. They fling dictators, bad men, into the flames. Feathers of dead wood fall from the torches they lay to rest in gluttonous houses. They pile the white gold dust into their treasuries, feed it to the bookkeeper's desk. Dust settles off of summer clouds and onto the fields. They mix crystalline water with the grayed ice. They make a mortar of it. They feed the lie to the rats, the pigs, the unworthy. In time, it burns their throats, fells their brickworks. Time laughs, and irony snickers. Grayed ice tumbles down from the burn pyre. They place man into the flames. And then this one is one that I wrote even more recently. And this one actually was inspired mostly by my teacher of dystopian literature, who has changed my life in many ways. And also by my teacher of U.S. history, which are basically the same class. And among the many things that I was informed of in those class is I have been informed that I do not deserve this life. Rusted, encrusted, crushed pearls hurled underfoot, mal-made formations of man-made green greed, life drenched in creosote mines, entrenched, real life benched on the sidelines as an ass warmer for the big shot next door. I have been informed that this life was poisoned before my time. River monsters seeping into sewers made of oval offices, awful offerings to bleeding heartisms, broadening the schism of me to you, he to she to we, them to they, now predator and prey, letting the red rain down from black clouds, painting walls already made of scar tissue to a deeper red than ever before. I've been informed that I would be better off sleeping for 1,000,000 years until we're all wiser and older, until the world stops getting colder, till the air ceases steaming with pollutants, rancid sacks streaming of black gold, black coal, leading down to the depths of Hades' skull, dragging us down with it under the dirt, the rock, bleeding from its forgotten twin sockets. I have been informed that I am doomed to come into adulthood in a half-baked apocalypse, but the apocalypse has already happened 5 times on this earth, and this is what's left over. So what's 1 or 2 more in 1,000,000,000 years, fallen or still standing? You won't have a hope to be traced from the hallucinogenic dung heap of history, and fate's a mystery anyways, because by definition, our intentional actions ending nothingness, but every one is required in creating the next us, tiny steps turning into earthquakes and light switches ending lives, because by definition, we have no lasting power over what we create. We cannot even see past the next sunrise. Since when could we plan our own lives? And besides, free will is as questionable as the pills our political system is overdosing on. Oh, I have been informed that we are toasting, slow roasting over the embers of our elders' mistakes, and I've been informed that nobody cares anyways, because by definition, meaning cannot be inherent, but must be assigned, and who cares about meaning anyways? We all say we do, but wouldn't we rather watch another episode of Parks and Rec forever? We sit at the beck and call of immediate needs and greeds. We reap what we sow, but our fields are salted, our progress halted by the here, the now, ultimate and exalted. We are our own God-forsaking gods, and will never be anything else, no matter who you see fit to pray to. I have been informed that I do not deserve this life. I have been told a whole generation weeps for their mistakes and doesn't give a shit to change anything, but I guess it's our issue now. At least they're sorry, right? But by definition of humanity, I believe that we only get one life, and it's right here. Only one. Anything else is an excuse, a reason, or a path to misuse. This is my life, and I won't hand it over to anyone. I can't let it go even if I wanted to. It cannot be gifted, wrapped up, sent away. I have one life. I can't forget it, can't erase it, can't trample it underfoot. I can't laugh it off. I can't turn it on or off because the switch was taped before I stepped through the ashen gates, and Lego pieces were re-prepared just for me to tread on before I stepped through the doormat. But who gives a shit anyways, because it's right here. And I've been informed that it will stay there until it's ripped from my chest, until the light fades from my eyes. At last, it will survive, nor will it live. It will thrive. I will color my own cutouts. I will paint my own meanings, dream dreams worth dreaming, leave in the mire, smog, and hellfire. I will fling pre-fortune apocalypses onto the pyre. So call me true or not, a never-ending liar. I don't give a fuck. Because this is my life. And I will be damned if I don't live it. Thank you.
The very first time we had a reading here, I asked Clint McCune, who first started SoulFood here, how he felt about words. And he said something that I've always remembered. If you say it, if you mean it. And I think that's a good thing. So it's fine to say it, if you mean it. Our next reader is Jan Ice. Janice? But Jan Ice? What? Jan Ice. And there's a red theme here, a pickup, a rust red Dodge something with a bulldog on the front instead of a ram. Okay, please welcome Jan.
Okay, this piece is inspired by my love of whodunit shows and movies that have an opening scene that then needs to be explained by the rest of the movie. So this is an opening scene. The back of my neck is tingling. I adjust my grip on the knife. There it is, the soft rustle of leaves that is not made by the wind. He is coming, moving down the path on silent feet, a predator on the hunt. I am his prey. I crouch low in my chosen shadow. This moonless night will be my last stand. I tense, ready for the attack. He stopped. Can he see me? Is the faint starlight enough for him to see my dark shadow among the shadows of the trees? He lights a cigarette. He's given himself away, and I will not miss my mark. He moves forward again. Come on, just a few steps, and you will fall into my trap. Crunch. That's it. The dry leaves I placed across the path, marking the right spot. I leap out from my hiding place, silent as a ninja, and plunge my knife into his neck. I stand face to face with the pastor of my church. Shock filters across his face, and I see myself reflected in his eyes. One massive hand closes around my throat as he reaches with his other hand to grip the knife, comically sticking out of the side of his neck. Killing is not as easy as the movies make it appear. This thought flashes across my mind as I reach out to the side and miss. I dare not look and draw his attention to the rope that should be just hanging within my reach. My backup plan. A smirk flickers across his lips. He looks at the knife in his hand. His eyes flick back to me. Darkness threatens to close in. I can see multicolored lights begin to spin around my sight. Desperation nearly makes me panic. Remain calm or he will win. The sing-song voice whispers in my head as time begins to slow. Staying calm is my only chance. I reach for the elusive rope and miss again. He glances at my outreached hand and frowns. My vision narrows. Does he know what I'm up to? I grab at the front of his shirt with my other hand. He glances down and an evil grin slowly spreads across his face. I'm out of time. One more desperate reach for my lifeline. This time I make contact. I grip it hard in my fist. Unable to breathe, I fling myself back, pushing against his chest. I pull the rope as hard as I can. His grip slips, and I fall to the ground, unable to do more than gulp life-giving air into my chest. The tree branches rustle overhead. He looks up. Too late. This time, the low-tech movie stunt works. He is impaled on the spikes fastened to the log as it swings down from its trigger point. I sit still, breathing sweet, cool air deep into my lungs. I wait for him to die. The bastard takes forever, but I don't have the strength to hurry it along, nor do I care that he suffers. My life may end with his last breath. He will never traumatize another little girl. My baby is safe now, and I will disappear. Thank you.
Tune in for the rest of the story. We want to see what happened or why it happened. All right, next up is Sunshine Graham, whose first car ride was in a minivan. What color was it?
So my parents have an argument if it's silver or gold, and I think it's silver, they think it's gold, and my brother thinks it's silver. So.
We can just say it's red. Sunshine Graham.
I'm obviously overdressed and very unprepared. So, this is a poem I wrote recently. I get emotional when I read it, sorry. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder just this year. And I wrote this poem about my feelings about it. Sorry, 1 second. I have a new label written across my brain. Erased from my mind is the certainty and the normality of depression is known no more. The underlining sadness becomes more complex. I have become a roller coaster, so scared of what I once had will be gone, wishing that I could understand why. Why this new label? Why this new struggle? This new life that was chosen for me? I was so used to the idea of depression and sadness. I was okay with depression. I understood it. But now, the sadness that once was now accompanied by painful anxiety. The bursts of madness were like lightning, first sharp and fast, then subtle and sweet. The pure happiness for no reason is risky. This feeling is new, weird, and somehow I feel like it can't be real. My bipolar disorder made me realize if I want to be free, I have to push past the crippling, taunting anxiety. The comforting thoughts of sadness and simple instability are now turned into random madness and irritability. But then the haunting yet helpful voice comes out to remind me, this isn't me. I am not a diagnosis, but yet I am not free. No longer taking one pill, but taking 3.
Thank you. Is this the first time you've read for us here?
It's my first time reading ever.
Wow. Thank you. Next up, we have Elizabeth, whose first vehicle was a VW bus. Do you remember the color? Okay. Two-tone. Come on up, Elizabeth.
I'm getting over a cold, so I sound kind of funny. Oh, it's that. Morning rain now causes anxiety. Every sound in my imagination wakes me. I pull the fleece blanket up to my nose, but the rain's gurgle down the gutter spout won't let me sleep again. The pain in my skin is incessant. Anxiety sank her fangs and left lesions. It's 5 a.m. and I'm awake. I push back the curtains. The rain pounds the lawn. Even the clouds are angry with what we have done. The birds tweet less than the president. It's too wet for them to sing. I tiptoe to the kitchen, but there are some things that coffee can't fix.
Thank you. Before I forget, I also want to invite all of you to come to the next reading of the Redmond Association of Spoken Word, which is coming up on Friday, May 26th over at the Vala Art Center. And this month we're featuring Curtis Manley, who is a children's book writer, and he has 3 new books, 3 recent books, 2 that just came out. And we're very pleased to have him give a presentation about his books and how they came to be. So please join us May 26th at the Vala Art Center for the Redmond Association of Spoken Word, which also sponsors Poets in the Park, which is coming up July 15 in Anderson Park. And that will feature Todd Marshall, who's a state poet laureate, and a reading of the new anthology he's put together called WA 129. For the 129 years since the state was founded, and lots of good poets in that collection. So lots to look forward to there, July 15. Next up we have Hannah, and Hannah's first vehicle was a Ford pickup. And what color was that one? Tan, okay. Hannah.
I want to say one quick thing about something that I've been working on recently, and that kind of ties with something I prepared. I have a good friend of mine that we have been working on a project for the last 2 months to World Oceans Day is on June 8th, and we are coordinating a celebration of the ocean for World Oceans Day, which is put on by the Ocean Foundation and their partner, which is the Ocean Project. And so we're really excited about it. It's going to be in Ballard, and we are trying to build a cross-sector collaboration on this project. So we have artists of all different kinds and local businesses and restaurants and all these different people coming together, and we're really excited about it. But the ultimate goal of this is to help engage people on plastic pollution in the ocean and the things that we can do to help be a solution to this large problem. We tend to think that we see all these things going on the national scale, and that's sometimes intimidating on how we can figure out how we can have any influence on it. So we're really focused on what can we do here in Washington to make sure that we protect the beautiful space that we live in and make sure that that's here for as long as possible and that we can all enjoy it. So I really hope that you guys come. I put some little flyers like this over on the little thing, so if you guys want to come, that'd be great. And I didn't really edit this at all. I just kind of wrote this. So this is written kind of from the perspective of the ocean, and it's called Waterways. Arteries clogged with oil, my form fixed, human furniture. Made cheap, wearing thin, the pressure builds, my heart thunders. My breath is thick and dirty, my lungs charred and carved. Choking on the stench of your bullshit. Do you see the panic in my eyes? I vomit, projectile and chronic. Have you lived past your fingertips? I fear not. It feels you've forgotten my love, my love. I feel a fury welling up. Here it comes. Watch out. This bothers me, sorry. Crashing, smashing, fighting to break free from this rhythm, thrown up like a fist. You walk right past. You grow accustomed to dodging the signs. The stench seems irregular. In fact, you usually hold your breath. Putrid fumes framed as the foretold future. The wind whispers your secrets into my ear. In your flurry, you freeze. Photoshopped to feel good, your file's full and your lust is low. You have a filter for that. But you cannot escape me, and your money won't save you. But the truth cannot die, it cannot be told, it cannot be controlled. That's all.
Have you read here before, Hannah? So another first timer. Our next reader is Roy Kindleberger, and his first car was a Duster, and it was black. Roy.
Hello. I'm going to read 2 tankas and 1 haiku. Meteor shower. On a midnight walk, stops us at a fountain. Cascades upwards and down again. There's always more. A return to an old manuscript feels like new. A walk on a bridge where I took the picture years ago. And here's the haiku. Anniversary. Scattered petals spill over. Divorce papers. Thanks.
Thank you, Roy. Our next reader is Ida Freilinger, and guess what color her Dodge is? Red. No, it's pink. Come on up, Ida.
Okay, that way. Hello? That'll work. People have been doing sonnets tonight, talking about sonnets. And I recently wrote a haiku sonnet. And I'm not saying it's good, I'm just saying it's a authentic haiku sonnet. Easter morning, daybreak in the fringes of the car wash city. Clear pink and azure form one facet. Jigsaw. A splash of yellow gold sparkles on the field pond. Frog silent. Clouds of rose, lavender, wasabi. Layered. A unicorn frappuccino has only one rainbow. Traffic jam. The unchanging rhythm of windshield wipers. Fragments of dreams. The storm moon, half empty.
Thank you, Ida. Thank you all of you for coming tonight and for sharing your work or listening. And a special thanks to Rose Alley Press and the Rose Alley authors. I'd like to close with a poem of mine, a recent poem. This is the first time I'm reading it. It's called The Second Coming. My son asks, where did we come from? He doesn't mean Bellevue, Yokohama, or Watford. He means, why are we here? I think to tell him, but don't, that either God created us or we evolved from ooze. No matter which he'll believe, there's always something beyond. If God made the trees, the rocks, the galaxies, where did God come from and why? And if we came from the Big Bang, where did that come from? And why is there something rather than nothing? You can go a long way, either way, but you come to that moment of doubt, or at least uncertainty, a flicker that becomes an endless wall of concealment. The closer you get, where everything falls apart. It's that ultimate beyond that sustains both beliefs, an ultimate doubt that doesn't disprove the other. I think to tell him this, but don't. Leave him with the faith that when he sits, the chair will hold. Thank you for coming tonight. And thank you to SoulFood for having us and staying a little late tonight. Thank you. And don't forget, we have some books for sale, so please check those out before you leave. Good night.